What if I told you the most unforgettable kids shows of all time didn't come from Hollywood, but from Canada? Shows so unique, so strange, and so powerful that they're still burned into our memories decades later. The giant who invited you to sit in a tiny chair. The clown who stretched across the floor like a living clock. The raccoons who battled a greedy pig in a forest that felt eerily like our own. And the campfire where kids whispered stories that made you afraid to turn off the lights. These weren't just shows. They were a secret code of Canadian childhood. If you know them, you know. And today, we're unlocking 10 of the most iconic, the weirdest, and the most magical Canadian kids shows that raised a generation. Stick around, because one of them wasn't just a kids show, it was the birthplace of a world-famous superstar. Number 10. Mr. Dressup, 1967 to 1996. Mr. Dressup was not just a television host. He was Canada's gentle grandfather on screen. Ernie Coombs with his calm voice, Casey, Finnegan, and of course the magical Tickle Trunk, brought imagination to life every single day. There were no flashy graphics, no loud music, just creativity and kindness. One minute he was sketching a picture, the next he was pulling out costumes that turned a living room into a world of pure play. For nearly 30 years, Canadian kids sat cross-legged on shag carpets and linoleum floors, waiting for the trunk to open. If America had Mr. Rogers, Canada had Mr. Dressup. And he felt just as personal, just as important. But Mr. Dressup was only the beginning. The next giant lived in a tiny castle that every Canadian remembers. Number 9. The Friendly Giant, 1958 to 1985. Look up, look way up. The moment those words were spoken, kids were transported into a softer world. Rusty the rooster and Jerome the giraffe sat in their miniature furniture, and a chair was always set aside just for you. The show was quiet, slow, even hypnotic. But it carried a sense of comfort that no other program could match. For nearly 3 decades, the Friendly Giant turned Canadian mornings into safe havens. It was never about action, it was about reassurance, and it is still remembered fondly for that. But not all kids' shows were gentle. Some were colorful, playful, and built around a mysterious visitor who might, or might not, appear. Number 8. Polka Dot Door, 1971 to 1993. If you remember Polkaroo, you probably just felt a wave of nostalgia. The show itself was fun and educational, but everyone was waiting for that moment. Would Polkaroo appear today? And if he did, would you spot him before he vanished again? Kids shouted at the screen. Parents smiled quietly, because they knew the secret. It was just one of the hosts in costume. Polka Dot Door made learning playful, but what stuck in memory was the Polkaroo himself. Mysterious, goofy, and unforgettable. But the next show on our list took things further. It turned a department store mannequin into a living character and made late-night adventures come alive. Today's special, 1981 to 1987. Imagine walking through a department store at night and realizing the mannequins could come alive. That was today's special, one of TV Ontario's most creative shows. Jeff the mannequin came to life when he wore his magic hat, joined by Jody the display designer, Sam the security guard, and Muffy the puppet mouse. The adventures were whimsical but also oddly comforting, because they took place in a setting every kid recognized: the mall. With catchy songs and practical lessons, today's special felt magical without being over the top. And if you remember Jeff's striped sweater, you remember a piece of 80s Canada. But not every Canadian kids show was soft. Some were loud, funny, and even messy. One in particular made slime into a national export. Number 6. You Can't Do That on Television, 1979 to 1990. This Ottawa-produced show became famous far beyond Canada's borders. It gave Nickelodeon its identity and introduced the world to green slime. The format was sketch comedy for kids, often outrageous, often pushing boundaries. Kids got slimed when they said, "I don't know." Water poured down when they said, "Water." And absurd humor ruled every episode. It even launched careers, including a young Alanis Morissette, before she became a music icon. For Canadian kids, it was proof that television could be rebellious, messy, and still for us. But television was not only about laughter, it was also about music, songs, and a man with a guitar who crawled through a hollow log. Number 5. Fred Penner's Place, 1985 to 1997. Fred Penner was gentle, musical, and endlessly kind. Every episode began with him crawling through a log into a world of songs and stories. With his guitar in hand, he sang about friendship, about kindness, and about the simple joys of life. For over a decade, he was the voice that reassured children across Canada that everything was going to be all right. Parents liked him because he was calm and wholesome. Kids loved him because the songs were catchy and made them feel seen. But after Fred Penner came something totally different. A cartoon that showed raccoons battling a cigar, chomping Tycoon Pig with one of the best theme songs of the era. Number 4. The Raccoons, 1985 to 1992. The Raccoons was more than just a cartoon, it was Canadian storytelling with a message. Bert Raccoon and his friends lived in the evergreen forest, constantly dealing with Cyril Sneer, the greedy, pink-nosed industrialist. The show blended comedy with environmental lessons long before that was common. Kids were entertained, but they were also learning about nature, friendship, and responsibility. And then there was the theme song. Run With Us became an anthem, a track so good it is still remembered decades later. The Raccoons proved that Canadian animation could compete with anything coming out of the United States. But animation was just the beginning. The next Canadian kids show would change the world of television itself, with computer graphics never seen before. Number 3. Reboot, 1994 to 2001. Reboot was not just a cartoon, it was a technological breakthrough. Created in Vancouver, it was the world's first fully computer-animated television series. It took place inside a computer system where Bob, Dot, and Enzo defended Mainframe against the villainous Megabyte. Every episode felt futuristic, with graphics that blew kids' minds in the mid-90s. It was fast, it was sharp, and it proved that Canadian studios could innovate on a global scale. If you remember waiting for that opening sequence, you remember just how groundbreaking Reboot really was. But if Reboot looked to the future, the next show looked straight into your fears. Number 2. Are You Afraid of the Dark, 1990 to 2000. Gather around the campfire, throw some sand on the flames, and listen to the Midnight Society. Are You Afraid of the Dark was a mix of horror, suspense, and pure Canadian creativity. Each episode told a spooky story that felt way too scary for kids' television, and yet that was exactly why it worked. Goosebumps was popular in books, but Are You Afraid of the Dark brought the chills right into our living rooms. From haunted houses to cursed objects, every episode ended with kids nervously looking at shadows in their bedrooms. The series became a Nickelodeon staple and remains one of Canada's greatest television exports. But our list ends not with horror, but with the most comfortable couch in Canadian television history. Number 1. The Big Comfy Couch, 1992 to 2006, Lunette the Clown, her doll Molly, and that enormous couch defined Canadian childhood in the 90s. The highlight was always the clock stretch, where Lunette sprawled across the rug pretending to be the hands of a giant clock. The show was colorful, silly, and endlessly rewatchable. It taught lessons about friendship and play, while giving kids a bright and safe world to visit every day. For over a decade, the big, comfy couch was a morning ritual, as familiar as cereal and orange juice. And if you just pictured Lunette's pigtails, you know the memories still live on. These 10 shows were more than just television. They were companions, teachers, and the voices of our childhoods. From the quiet reassurance of The Friendly Giant to the thrills of Are You Afraid of the Dark, they helped raise an entire generation of Canadians. So which one hits your nostalgia button the hardest? Was it the Polkaroo, the Tickle Trunk, or that clock stretch you tried to copy on the living room floor? Drop your memories in the comments, and let's see which Canadian kids' show truly defined us. And if you want more forgotten Canadian classics and cozy nostalgia, hit subscribe. We have more deep dives coming. Same time next week, eh?